How's it going, everyone? This is Donovan Shanley. Welcome again to the Cassette Static Podcast. I'm here with Heather Duby. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, first off, what really got you into music in the first place?
Um, I really had a desire to write. I really had a desire to either write in terms of like writing books, like authorship, or writing music. And I was fortunate enough to have grown up with a piano in my household, and a very good friend of mine took a weekly lesson for, she took piano for about 8 years, I think. I took piano for about 6 months because I got bored with it and decided to go do something else. I think I probably went and played soccer or something instead. And just having that in the home, I think I would, because I would play all the time, actually quite regularly. Having that in the home really became kind of a form of habit to play and write and try to remember what I'd written before and all those kinds of things. And I didn't do a lot of notating or anything like that, but just trying to recall things through my ear and memory and things like that. And then of course, as like most people, music and the artists that you listen to, especially during your formative years, adolescence, and things like that, really can become important to your sense of self and your identity, and what kind of social group you're hanging out with, and you kind of part of your worldview and things like that. Um, and I had listened to radio a lot as a kid before I could go out and buy cassette tapes and things like that. That's how old I mean, that really dates me. But eventually, when I had begun high school, I started, well, actually, prior to high school, probably in middle school, I had a friend whose brother made a mixtape for me that had all these great, like, new wave dance hits on it, like Erasure. There was Men Without Hats was on there. Some Depeche Mode was on there. All these different bands, and he made a mixtape for me, and so that introduced me to a lot of music that wasn't actually available on the radio. Uh, and it just kind of continued to grow from there. When I was a really young kid, my parents, my dad, and my uncles listened to a lot of, like 70s hits, but then also some really great, like classic country, some Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, things like that around the shops and things like that. And then my mom was a great, like, she really likes jazz, and so a lot of musical theater, like a lot of Broadway, which I think is part of the composition interest on my part, was growing up with music that's a little bit more um, to the ear, a little bit more challenging, not as conventional as pop music that you hear on the radio. So that's a very long explanation, but for me, it was such a broad background. There was such a range of different things I was exposed to, that I can't pinpoint one. It's not one point in time where I was like, oh, I want to go do that. It was really just a very vast, like all my life, just a range of being introduced to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
When did you first start sort of writing songs, and how was that experience kind of like?
Well, I was actually writing in high school, but I wasn't writing for voice. I wasn't writing singing parts. I sang at that time in choir and in musical theater, and because I was always doing all of that stuff. but I wasn't writing for voice. I would just write pieces on piano. And my mom had a nylon acoustic, a classical guitar, and I would mess around with that, a little bit, and not very much. I wasn't very proficient at all, but I was writing stuff on piano all the time, and then I would see if I could recall it, and I'd keep playing it, and then I would maybe not play it for a few months, so I'd go back and have to play it again to make sure I could still remember it and all that kind of stuff. So, but I wasn't doing it for anyone else to really hear. It was just for my own. Just I would write pieces that they'd be maybe like 4 or 5 minute pieces, in length. I would do a lot of I wrote a lot of stuff with rolling chords, um, and because I wasn't really like an exceptional player, but I was just kind of sounding things out and teaching myself as I went. I was really fortunate to be at this writer's workshop when I was in high school, and it was at Lewis and Clark College, and it was a bunch of high school kids from like all over the region. It was like a regional thing, kids from like out of state and other states and all that stuff. And they had open access to pianos there on the campus. So I would go and play piano while I was, when you're in high school, when you get an opportunity to go be on a college campus to participate in stuff like that, writer's workshop, any like sports stuff, like any of the opportunities that high school kids can have to be on a campus to experience what that setting is like, because it is more dedicated to thoughtful pursuit. It's higher education is supposed to be about improving the mind. So that was really cool, and so I played a lot of piano. I remember in particular that on that during that workshop, and it was one of the only times that I had played for other people very much. So that's why I bring it up, because I remember there was another student who was a participant in the workshop, and he was like, "Oh, play that one song that you always play. It's so pretty." And I was like, "Oh, like I was never really in that kind of situation, except for maybe that time that I was in that workshop." But I was like, "Oh, wow, this is kind of interesting. Like I wrote this song and this person likes it. Like that's cool." So it was really not anything, it wasn't like for an audience or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very small. So
Yeah. So you recorded an album called Post to Wire in, I believe, 1999. What was sort of like the recording process for that? And what also made you want to release that album and do like a whole career of music?
um that was um that was a record I did with Steve Fisk in Seattle. We did other records after that. That was the first one that we worked on together. That record was a great opportunity to really receive an education from him about um, the evolution of a lot of the technology that has later become central to other kinds of music. Like he is quite versed in like how sampling was first started, how like the first older samplers would sample at a slower rate, and because of that, they would tend to uh, have more static is not the right word, but more um, sound attached to the music that's being moved, to make it sound like a part of the reason sampling was so cool when it was first beginning was because it was like a reconstruction of the original sound. So it was like you could tell that it was this really cool track, and a clip from it that had, because of the sampling process, accumulated some like sonic dirt on the way the clip sounds, which is part of why it sits and sounds so cool texturally within the song, right? So this is part of like what sampling was when it was beginning, because it was not in this, it was not in the, in the box as things are now. It was not like a digital crunch, reducing it down to a bit size. And then, now with the plugins and doing things in the box and all those kinds of things, they've done an incredible job. Like things sound amazing. You can't even tell. And in some ways, like they're improved upon because you can bring out these like analog textures in a digital setting now in a way that you can manipulate even more in a more finite way so that you can make it sound even more precisely how you want it. So this isn't about saying like analog versus digital. It's just about the continuum that it has been, right? It has been a progression, and there's been all these different things developed and designed and released, and people you have been able to use them. And so it's not about one is better than the other, but what an incredible continuum it is.
Yeah.
So Steve, working with Steve, gave me the opportunity he gave me some education about, well, this is at that sample rate, which is why it sounds like that, and so on and so forth. He also has an ARP 2600, which is one of the first, it's like the patchboard, old, beginnings of synthesizers, which were when they were first working on synthesizers and oscillation and different waveforms. There's in sound, like anything in physics that involves, you have square waves. And I don't even pretend that I know as much as possible to know it all about it. But on the ARP 2600, it has like a visual representation of what the wave form will look like. And there's a keyboard and a patch board, and it goes up. It's like if you imagine, like if you looked at like the old telephone operators. So anyway, because of his enormous amount of knowledge with all this stuff, our record took quite a long time to work on, because I was trying to learn how to write with that different kind of framework of having these ideas like samples available, of having, the digital and analog interface occurring during that record. Because in 99, the DAT machine was the benchmark, right? So people in 99, people were like, oh, we're going to record this record to DAT, and maybe we'll even take some of the stems, which are, the major parts of the mix. Maybe we'll even take some of the stems, put them on DAT, and use them in a live setting to support and help fill it out. Because that's part of how, when you're working with samples and things like that, there's all these, other more production based elements. How do you bring those in, right? It's not necessarily as simple as like, well, we're going to have the drummer play to a click, so on and so forth. Anyway, um so that record, we probably worked on it for a couple of years, because it was like, well, let's just see how we want to do this. Like, some of it's going to be good, some of it's not so good. A lot of those songs, for myself as a writer, I'm like, I really needed to, something needed to be better in the song, in the construction of the song itself, in the, chordal aspects of the songs. I listen to it now and I go like, I can really hear how much I've learned since then.
Yeah.
Um, and but I think it's still a pretty. I still think it's a pretty cool record, especially when you consider the time frame that it was in. I mean, so I think we sonically, I think that record is still really interesting. I think the songs on my end could have been stronger. Um, and then, if I were to try to dissect my vocal performance, that's no point. There's no point in that. But,
Yeah.
you know, um, so yeah, that was a really, it was like a point in time. I didn't, I guess I also felt like I didn't know how I would be able to recreate it. We spent a lot of time on it, and then it's very hard to be a musician and trying to get things off the ground and working in restaurants, and which is what I've always been doing. And I did the best I could, but life is life.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. What was the reception like to that album?
um, initially, well, as far as I know, even I mean, I'm sure there are critics of it, but I've mostly only received positive feedback from people about it. And I've had friends that were like, "Oh, that one song, I was in the delivery room." Like, "Oh, good, good. I'm glad it helped." Like they're like, "It's so moving," which is so. I'm glad that it's something that people feel moved by, and that if it provides any kind of um, you know lessening of grief or stress or anything to anyone, then I'm happy it served a good purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 2001, you recorded a duo album with the members of the band Elemental. Um, when did you meet them, and how did like the idea of an album with them come up?
So Elemental was Skylar Gilmore and Reggie Watts, and Reggie and I had been in a band together prior to the record that I did with Steve Fisk. So Reggie and I were in a band with my friend Ryan Link, um, and so we had a three piece, and it was a great opportunity for Reggie and I to reconnect. He was, I think, he was at that time also, or maybe it was just prior to Moktube. He also had a band called Moktube, and I think that this EP was before he was with that band, but and then he left Seattle. He moved out to New York, and he's been doing all kinds of stuff. So, um, uh, but at that point in time, it seemed like like a kind of like not a difficult project to try to do together, and it's something that we could do like fairly quickly. And Reggie and I, Reggie and I used to go out dancing and to a lot of drum and bass, because at that time there was a lot of drum and bass happening in all over the place, but quite a lot of it in Seattle. And Skylar was spinning a lot of drum and bass, and so Reggie and I would go out dancing, and so it was a pretty organic idea to try to put that project together. Um, Focus North had been the name of Skylar's project prior to the EP. Um, and so, yeah, anyway, but um, I don't think there's four songs on that Elemental EP? Four songs, I think, right?
Yeah.
Maybe five, four or five, yeah. So, but
Yeah. So in 2004, you did a cover of a Tim Buckley song for a compilation album. How'd that all come about?
um, that was through Manifesto Records. I know that some people think that I butchered that. I read something that was like, "This is not how this song is," and this woman totally destroyed this song. And it's true. If you were to listen to the original and then listen to my, it doesn't even sound like the same song. But here's my point: is that with a cover, I don't know. I don't subscribe to the belief that if you are covering a song, it is necessarily to make it sound like the original, and it is not. It shouldn't be a given that if you're covering a song, it's as a way uh of like compliment. It's not supposed. I mean, it can be about anything. It can be plenty of people cover songs to make a mockery of the original, which is not at all what I was intending to do. But what happened with me, I was very flattered to be asked to participate in that project. However, the original song is not at all the the what it just I had there was no way for me to cover that song and keep it in the realm that the original is in. There just isn't. It's very far out of my range. If I had tried to do it perform it in the way of the original at that point in time, it was not easily done.
Yeah.
And I just the band that I had at that time, um, we did what we could with it, and it's a completely different song. And singing it in the way that I did was actually for me a, a great thing. Like I sang really big on that cover, and that the original is so quiet and so understated, and which is great. But there was just no way for me to do it that way. I think I was in the midst of a breakup. Um, Not the only time in my life I've been in the midst of a breakup. And I started singing it that way. And the guys in my band were like, "That's great." And it was pretty challenging to do that when we did the takes for it. I had to really try to I mean, it's a lot of singing. So I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it. I felt, I know that when you read criticism, when people are so upset,
Yeah.
don't listen to it. Then I don't know what to say about it. You can't get upset about it, I guess, but it makes you feel like you have to explain yourself.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. So,
To my credit, the gentleman from Manifesto Records who asked me to participate in that was very happy with it, and he thought it was great. That's what he told me. So, and he was the organizer of the project.
oh, nice. Did you get
Yeah.
to choose a song that you did, or was it
No,
just,
I didn't.
uh, would you have preferred any other song from Tim's discography?
Probably,
Yeah.
probably, but I'm not even versed in his catalog. You know, I'm. I know I was familiar with Jeff Buckley, so, but I'm not versed in Tim Buckley's work. I was flattered that I was asked to contribute to that. I heard Dot Allison's cover, which I think immediately followed mine, and I don't, I don't, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but I don't think mine was any more of a departure from the original than hers was.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So from the Post to Wire album and the EP with Elemental, you kind of had a shift when you made Come Across the River and your self-titled album, sort of to a more acoustic sound, with pianos and guitar and all that. What was there any cause for that? Or
Um, well, actually, yes. So to what I was saying earlier about having some disappointment with my own writing in Post to Wire, when I was working on Come Across the River, forefront in my mind was doing writing songs that were better compositionally. So I started Coming Across the River with that as my objective. Um, One of the things I also thought when I was working on Post to Wire is that for me, lyrically, when you're dealing with electronic elements, lyrically, the material is a little bit different. You write lyrics a little bit differently with music that has a lot of electronic components in it. For myself, at least, that's my own, because things that are intensely personal in the electronic music setting, to me, it doesn't. They don't sit together as well. To me, that it's like having, to me, those two, having really personal lyrical content with a lot of sampled work, for me it just doesn't work quite as well. So one of the things in Post to Wire that was really a challenge and something I tried to do was write lyrics that were a little bit a slight step removed from my uh, too much of my personal self, so that the performance would sit better within the music. When I moved to a more acoustic base, and I was trying at the beginning of writing Come Across the River, trying to write music compositionally that was better, as far as the melodic chordal changes, just the whole, just trying to write better music. Um, I also found that lyrically it could shift a little bit, and lyrically it could be a little bit more personal and a little more original to what was where it was coming from. I could involve more detail lyrically within an acoustic framework, and I could write, or I needed to write better compositionally in an acoustic framework than than what existed in the writing of Post to Wire, if that makes any sense.
yeah, that does.
Yeah.
So in 2007, you moved to New York, and then how did that affect your music? Like, maybe not even like just your lyrics and everything, but like what was available for recording, who was available for recording, and some of the venues, or did that affect your 2007 tr tracks?
Um, let's see. Well, I did some tracking at a studio that's, it's no longer there. It used to be in Williamsburg, called Headgear, Headgear Recording Studios. Um, and I also came back to Seattle and did some tracking at a studio called Red Room. And those, I had done an EP with Matt Bayless, and that EP is the one that's called Latency. And so we tracked some of it at Headgear. And then we also did some tracking at Red Room. And those songs, half of them I had begun writing before I actually even moved to the East Coast. So I had begun writing them in Seattle, and then wrote some when I was in New York, Jersey City area. And then finally recorded those and released those in January, of 2011. Um, what I think I had been able to assemble a three-piece band. So I was playing piano and I had a guitar player and a drummer. Um, and we had done some playing around New York City. Um, I I was feeling better about my writing by that point. I was feeling that my songwriting had gotten much stronger. That I was compositionally, I was writing things that were more finished. Like that's the thing is that I have some songs. Steve and I talked about this. Fisk. We talked about there was a song that I had written that was on the self-titled record that was like it was almost like perfect. It was almost like a perfect good song. But I had like there was something with the chorus, like I just had not gotten the chorus to where it needed to be, but like the other parts of the song were perfect. So just that thing of like, okay, the A section is great. Now we're going to our B section. Now we got our C section, and just writing a piece that is like, oh, those are the ones that all go together. And it's a nuanced, you know, it's not it's it's probably easy for a lot of people, but not me. So I don't know.
Yeah. Um, so in 2011, you ended up getting into a car crash, and in your biography, it talked about how you you ended up getting a degree shortly at sort of after the crash, but you went back to music to record Undone in to release Undone in 2020. What kind of got you back into music, or did you always have like a plan to record new stuff?
I did always have a plan to go back and at least do one more thing. The accident that I was in crushed my hands. Um, so my hands were crushed, and um, I was actually pinned under the truck. Uh, I had already been planning to finish my education, and what that meant for me was that I wanted to see if I could get a law degree. I wanted to go to law school. That had already been a plan of mine before the accident. I was working in a restaurant. I had gone to community college and gotten my bachelor's degree, um, and then I finished law school. And then after I finished law school, I did the EP Undone with John and Yellow. Um, and that was really cool. He and I had been talking about trying to do some recording for years. I've known him as long as I've lived on the East Coast, just about, and so it was great to finally get the chance to do it. We released it in 2020 during COVID. I didn't really, so much had happened between with the accident and finishing my education and moving and all these things that I didn't make a very big deal about the release. So I don't know, a lot happens.
Yeah. So over the years, you've performed with different bands. The most famous probably being both Interpol and Camera Obscura. Um, what was that like to perform with them, and how did that happen?
That though both of those shows were in Seattle. Um, I've also performed with Minus the Bear quite a lot.
Yeah,
Toured with them. Um, at the Interpol show, it was right before they were playing huge rooms, and they played at a small venue in Seattle, and I would just remember it being just overrun with. It was just so many people. It was a madhouse, which is what happens when you have a band that's on the cusp of greatness and they're playing a smaller venue. It's really cool to be around those moments when that to to get to I'm so far removed and out of any loop at this point that I don't have any of those kinds of experiences in my life anymore. But at that age, it was really cool to get to to be there and just see like what when there's a buzz happening about a band and just all the people that are excited, and there's it's a lot of energy, all the people that are there to see this new band. And at that time no one, that kind of like dark wave, um um I mean there's there had been some things like that obviously prior to Interpol, but they kind of really, and I think that there are probably a lot of bands now, but they were kind of the ones, I at least as far as I can tell, that really kind of brought that back. The kind of like the dark wave, the very like the straight, very so, I don't I it's I'm better talking about how things are recorded and done than I am about like talking about what a band sounds like. I'm not very good at
yeah.
that part, but um oh, my phone is about to die. But anyway, um so it was cool. It was great to get to be around that. And Camera Obscura, I mean they're great bands, They I really like some of that like Bell and Sebastian, Camera Obscura. I always really liked Galaxy 500, like the kind of more I don't know, I some people would say what twee is what they call it, but the Scottish kind of like pop, but the I don't however people want to describe it.
Yeah.
I've, I've always been a fan of that genre, and they're great. She's a great singer. They have a great um like understated presentation.
hmm And the final question of this interview, what are your plans for the future, both like I guess musically and life-wise?
Oh, that's a
Yeah, kind of a loaded question.
yeah, that's a big question. Uh, well, I would like to do some, I would like to write some music again. I have really been on hold, um, just trying to get some, basic life things in place. My hands are like this. These are what my hands look like. As you can see, they're quite banged up.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that that's a big change to encounter at 36, which is how old I was when that happened. Um, I still work. I work in bars and restaurants, and I worked in some law office settings for a time. It's been difficult to adjust my daily life with this situation. You know, I still take care of my home. I have a 13-year-old dog. I don't, I'm not collecting any disability. The disability process is incredibly lengthy and arduous. And it's not something I really want to do. I'd rather continue to work. Uh, um, so it's been a lot to navigate. It's been a lot to try to just to get my bearings again and just feel like myself again in my own life. It's been really a challenge. So I would like to write. I have not had the opportunity because of a lot of regular life change happening all the time with employment and things like that. It's been really difficult. So I'm trying to get some stability back in place. That's all. I don't know what else I can do. Um, my family is out west. It's been a hope and an idea to maybe be able to relocate again to be nearer to them. Um, but so it's a lot of like moving parts. It's been really tough. That my injuries are really, it's like one of the things I say to people is that, um, like the first person video games
Yeah.
where you're like running and it's like all you see is like the the game character, the video game character is like they're like their direction
Hmm.
or their hands or like their whatever their weapon is or whatever. It's like this may not be the first thing that people see about me. They may see like, oh, she has dyed her hair blonde and she's wearing glasses. But for me, as the person looking out, this is the first thing I see of me every time I do anything is this, you know? So it's really been a lot to try to integrate and just keep going. It's a lot. It's been difficult.
Yeah.
It's been 15 years now, so that's a lot. That's a large part of your life.
Yeah.
15 years, and it's not going to change back. So, I just. But yes, I'd like to play guitar again. I enjoy playing guitar a lot more than I enjoy playing piano now because I get really frustrated when I play piano because I can't articulate the way I did before in hands. But I was never good at playing guitar, or at least not as good as I would have liked. So it doesn't matter if I play guitar and it's bad. So, and Vox makes a great mini electric guitar. And my friend Ben Verellen makes these incredible amps. So I have this incredible amp that I love, and I have a mini electric guitar, and I will resume, these pursuits to the dismay of everyone, I'm sure. No, I'm just kidding, but um, that's it. That's all I got.
Great. So this was the Cassette Static Podcast. Once again, this is Heather Duby. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for
And
having me.